The restaurant fell quiet in a way that had nothing to do with elegance. It wasn't a polite hush of expensive dining rooms where crystal glasses chimed and violin music floated through candlelight. It was the kind of silence that happened when danger walked through the door. The heavy glass entrance opened slowly, and every person inside instinctively looked up. 3 men stepped in first. They wore dark suits tailored so sharply they seemed to slice through the air as they moved. Their eyes scanned the room with practiced calm, counting exits, measuring distances, watching hands. And then the 4th man entered. Jones. The name alone was enough to drain color from faces across half of Manhattan. He wasn't the loud, theatrical kind of criminal people imagined in movies. There were no gold chains or arrogant shouting. Jones was quiet. Dangerously quiet. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair combed neatly back and eyes so cold they looked almost reflective, like polished stone. A thin scar crossed the bridge of his eyebrow, just enough to remind anyone staring that violence had touched him before. And probably would again. But tonight, something about his arrival was unusual. He wasn't alone. On his arm walked a small elderly woman dressed in a black coat and silver scarf. Her posture was delicate, her movements hesitant. She held tightly to Jones's sleeve as if the world around her was unfamiliar. His mother. Few people had ever seen her in public. The manager nearly tripped rushing toward them. "Mr. Jones," he said breathlessly, bowing his head far too low. "Welcome. Your table is prepared." Jones didn't respond immediately. His eyes slowly swept the restaurant. Only after confirming the room was safe did he guide his mother toward a secluded corner booth. The entire restaurant exhaled when he sat down. Except one person. Angela. Behind the bar, polishing a glass that had already been spotless for several minutes, Angela kept her head lowered. She had learned something important working in places like this. Invisible people survive longer. Angela was 24, thin from long hours and short sleep. Her dark hair was tied into a simple bun beneath the restaurant's plain black uniform cap. Most customers barely noticed her, and she preferred it that way. Being invisible meant she could quietly finish her shift, collect her tips, and go home to the cramped apartment where overdue bills were stacked like small towers on the kitchen table. It meant keeping the lights on. It meant medicine for her younger brother. It meant survival. "Angela," the manager snapped suddenly. She looked up quickly. "Yes, sir." "Stay away from table 12 tonight." Her stomach sank. "Table 12. Jones." "Just serve drinks," the manager whispered urgently. "No mistakes." Angela nodded. "Yes, sir." Across the room, a young waiter named Tyler approached the table carrying menus. Tyler was new. And unfortunately, Tyler was arrogant. He had the kind of confidence that came from never having experienced real consequences. "Evening," he said casually, placing menus down. "Wine list." Jones gestured to his mother. "Ask her." Tyler glanced at the elderly woman. "Red or white, ma'am?" She didn't answer. Instead, she leaned closer, studying his lips carefully. Tyler frowned. "Red," he repeated louder. The woman's hands moved uncertainly over the menu. She looked confused, her fingers trembling slightly. Jones watched silently. Tyler sighed impatiently. "Meh." Still no answer. The young waiter leaned forward and spoke louder. "Red or white?" The woman flinched slightly. Then Tyler laughed under his breath. "Oh," he muttered, glancing at Jones. "She can't hear." Jones's expression hardened. Tyler continued, oblivious. "Don't worry, I'll just pick something. Saves time." Jones spoke quietly. "What did you say?" Tyler shrugged. "I said I'll choose the wine." Jones's voice dropped lower. "Apologize." The entire room froze. Tyler blinked. "But what?" The bodyguards near the wall shifted slightly. Jones leaned forward. "Apologize to my mother." Tyler swallowed, suddenly realizing the danger he had walked into. "I didn't mean." But panic made him worse. He turned to the elderly woman and began speaking loudly. "I said I'm sorry." She recoiled from the shouting, covering her ears instinctively. Tears welled in her eyes. Jones slowly reached for the steak knife on the table. Across the room, Angela saw everything. She saw the terrified woman. She saw the trembling waiter. And she saw the moment the room was about to turn violent. Angela closed her eyes for one brief second. If she stayed quiet, none of this would be her problem. If she stayed invisible, she would finish her shift and go home safely. But when she opened her eyes again, she saw something she recognized too well. The elderly woman's expression. Fear. Isolation. The look of someone trapped behind silence. Angela set down the glass. Then she walked across the restaurant floor. The manager whispered urgently behind her. Angela stopped. But she didn't stop. She reached the table just as Jones lifted the knife slightly from the tablecloth. Wait, Angela said softly. Jones turned toward her. The room felt 10 degrees colder under his gaze. You should leave, he said quietly. Angela didn't look at him. Instead, she knelt beside the elderly woman's chair. The woman's hands were trembling. Angela took a slow breath. Then she raised her hands and began to sign. Her fingers moved with gentle precision. Are you all right? The effect was immediate. The elderly woman's crying stopped. Her eyes widened in shock. For several seconds, she simply stared at Angela's hands moving through the air. Then slowly, almost shyly, she lifted her own hands and signed back. Yes. The entire restaurant stared. Jones didn't move. Angela smiled warmly. He didn't understand. I'm sorry. The woman laughed silently, relief flooding her face. She reached forward and squeezed Angela's hands gratefully. Jones lowered the knife. He looked from his mother's joyful expression to the quiet waitress kneeling beside her. His voice was calm, but curious. You speak sign language? Angela nodded. Yes? What? Angela hesitated. My brother lost his hearing when he was 6, she said softly. I learned so he wouldn't be alone. Jones studied her carefully. For the first time since entering the restaurant, the feared man looked genuinely surprised. His mother signed something quickly. Angela translated. She says she wants the sweet red wine. Jones nodded slowly. Bring it. Angela stood to leave. But Jones spoke again. You will serve this table tonight. Angela froze slightly. I'm actually assigned to the bar. Jones's gaze hardened just enough to make the entire room tense again. You are now assigned here. The manager across the room nodded frantically. Angela swallowed. Yes, sir. As she walked back toward the bar, her heart was pounding. She thought the night was almost over. She thought she had simply prevented something terrible. What Angela didn't know was that by stepping into that moment, she had just changed her entire life. And somewhere deep in Jones's mind, a quiet question had already begun forming. Who was the invisible waitress? Who wasn't afraid of him? Angela expected the night to return to normal. Instead, for the rest of the evening, the entire restaurant orbited around table 12. No one spoke too loudly near it. No one lingered nearby longer than necessary. Even the manager moved carefully, like a man walking across thin ice. Angela carried the wine bottle with steady hands, though inside her nerves were twisting like wires pulled too tight. Jones watched her approach. Not aggressively. Not suspiciously. Just observing. His mother sat across from him smiling faintly, her hands resting on the table as if waiting for Angela to continue the silent conversation they had started earlier. Angela poured the wine gently. The older woman signed something quickly. Angela smiled. She says thank you, Angela translated softly. Jones nodded once. Then his mother signed again, slower this time. Angela's eyes widened slightly. She's asking how long you've known sign language, Angela said. Jones leaned back in his chair. 10 years, Angela replied, signing as she spoke. My brother lost his hearing. The elderly woman's face softened. Her fingers moved again. Angela translated. She says you're kind. Jones looked down at the table for a moment, thoughtful. Kind. That wasn't a word people usually used around him. Dinner continued quietly after that. Angela translated the menu. She interpreted her mother's stories. For the first time in years, the old woman laughed an airy, silent laugh that made her shoulders shake. Several diners in the restaurant stared, some in confusion, others in disbelief. They had never seen Jones's mother smiling. Not like that. Jones noticed, too. He said nothing, but Angela felt his eyes on her throughout the evening. Not threatening. Curious. At the end of the meal, Angela placed the bill on the table. Jones didn't even look at it. He placed a folded stack of cash beside the plate. Angela glanced at it and nearly froze. It was more than she made in a week. She looked up. "I can't accept this," she said quietly. Jones tilted his head. "You served my mother well. It's too much." "Is it?" Angela hesitated. Then she nodded politely. "Thank you." As she walked away, Jones's mother signed something behind her. Angela paused. Jones spoke. "What did she say?" Angela looked back. "She said she hopes you come back tomorrow." Angela didn't answer. She simply returned to the bar. But something inside her chest felt strange. Because for the first time in a long time, someone had looked at her like she mattered. The rain had started by the time Angela's shift ended. Heavy rain. Cold rain. The kind that made the streets shine like black glass under streetlights. Angela stepped out the back door of the restaurant and pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself. She began walking toward the subway station. Her mind replayed the evening over and over. The way Jones had watched her. The way his mother had smiled. The money still folded carefully in her pocket. It could pay her electricity bill. Maybe two. Angela allowed herself one small breath of relief. Then headlights appeared behind her. A car rolled slowly to the curb. Angela's shoulders tensed immediately. She didn't turn around. But she already knew. The door opened. Footsteps. Then a voice she hated hearing. "Angela." She closed her eyes briefly. "But..." He grabbed her arm roughly. "You're late." Angela pulled away slightly. "I have the money." Rick laughed. "You're always saying that." The second man stepped out of the car. Angela recognized him too. They worked for a man named Salvador Marino, a loan shark. Her father had borrowed money from him years ago. And after her father died, the debt had become hers. "You owe $80,000 now," Rick said casually. Angela stared at him. "That's impossible." "Interest." Angela's heart pounded. "I pay every week." Rick leaned closer. "Not enough." The second man smirked. "Maybe we should visit your brother again." Angela's blood ran cold. "Leave him out of this." Rick grabbed her jacket and shoved her against the wall. "You don't get to make rules." Angela tried to twist free. "I said I have money." She reached for her pocket. Rick slapped her hand away. "We'll take it." He began searching her coat. Angela struggled. But Rick was bigger. Stronger. "You think working in that fancy place makes you important?" he sneered. "People like you stay where we put you." Angela's head struck the brick wall behind her. Stars exploded across her vision. Rick grabbed her arm again. "Maybe we take you to Marino tonight." The second man laughed. "He'll enjoy that." Angela's heart pounded violently. She tried to scream. But suddenly the headlights behind them flared bright. Another car screeched into the alley. Rick turned. The door opened. A tall man stepped out. "Jones." He moved calmly. Slowly. But the air around him felt dangerous. Rick recognized him instantly. "Oh." He didn't finish. Jones grabbed Rick's wrist. And twisted. The crack echoed through the alley. Rick screamed. Jones released him and stepped forward. The second man pulled a gun. But another figure appeared behind him. One of Jones's bodyguards. The gun clattered to the pavement. In less than 5 seconds, the fight was over. Rick was on the ground clutching his broken wrists. The other man was unconscious. Jones stood over them. "You touched her," he said quietly. Rick stared up at him in terror. "She owes money." Jones crouched slightly. How much? 80. Jones stood. They. Rick blinked. What? Jones looked down at him. Tell Marino the debt is mine now. Rick shook his head weakly. He what? Jones leaned closer. He wailed. Rick understood. He scrambled to his feet and ran. The second man staggered after him. Within seconds, the alley was silent again. Angela was still leaning against the wall, breathing hard. Jones turned toward her. Rain fell softly around them. You're injured, he said. I'm fine. You're not. Angela straightened. You didn't have to do that. Jones studied her. They threatened your brother. Angela said nothing. Jones removed his coat and placed it over her shoulders. Get in the car. Angela hesitated. I should go home. It isn't safe. I've handled worse. Jones stepped closer. His voice lowered. Not tonight. Angela looked into his eyes. For a moment she saw something unexpected there. And sir. She finally nodded. Just for tonight. Jones opened the car door. Angela climbed inside slowly. As the car pulled away from the alley, Angela looked out the window. Her life had been simple before. Difficult, but simple. Now she was sitting in the car of the most dangerous man in the city. And somehow, he had just become the only person standing between her and the people who wanted to destroy her. Angela didn't know it yet, but the moment she stepped into that car, the invisible waitress disappeared forever. And a far more dangerous story had just begun. Angela had never seen a house like it. Calling it a house didn't even feel accurate. It was more like a fortress that had decided to pretend it was a mansion. Tall iron gates opened silently as the black car approached, revealing a long winding driveway lined with tall oak trees. The property stretched so far into the darkness that Angela couldn't see where it ended. Security cameras turned as the car passed. Men with earpieces stood near the entrance like statues. Angela swallowed quietly. This is where you live. Jones sat across from her in the back seat, calm as ever. Yes. The car rolled to a stop in front of a massive stone building illuminated by warm golden lights. Angela stepped out slowly. Her shoes felt out of place on the polished marble steps. Inside, the mansion was silent. Not empty. Just controlled. Every hallway looked immaculate, every light placed perfectly, every movement of the staff quiet and deliberate. Angela suddenly felt very small. Jones walked beside her toward a large sitting room. Your brother, he said. Where is he now? Oh, alone? Angela nodded. He's used to it. Jones stopped walking. That ends tonight. Angela frowned slightly. What do you mean? I sent a car. Angela blinked. You what? It's already on the way. Her chest tightened. You can't just take people from their homes. Jones studied her expression carefully. They threatened him. Angela's voice sharpened. He's still my responsibility. Jones didn't react with anger. Instead, he nodded once. And now he is mine too. Before Angela could respond, the door to the sitting room opened. And a familiar elderly woman stepped inside. Jones's mother. The moment she saw Angela, her face lit up like a sunrise. She hurried across the room with surprising energy and gently grabbed Angela's hands. Her fingers began moving immediately. Angela laughed softly in surprise. She says she knew you would come. Jones leaned against the doorway, watching them quietly. Angela signed back. I didn't know I was coming either. The older woman laughed silently again. She signed something longer this time. Angela translated aloud. She says the restaurant was too loud but you made it quiet. Jones's expression softened slightly. Angela sat beside the woman on the couch and they began signing back and forth naturally. For the first time that evening, Angela forgot where she was. They talked about small things. Oh, music. Memories. Jones watched the conversation carefully. He noticed something important. His mother looked alive. For 10 years she had rarely spoken to anyone outside the family. Now her hands moved rapidly, her eyes bright with excitement. Jones folded his arms slowly. Angela wasn't just communicating. She was restoring something. Something he had thought lost forever. After several minutes, Angela noticed Jones watching them. He stood. I should go. His mother immediately shook her head and grabbed Angela's wrists. She signed firmly. Angela hesitated. What did she say? Jones asked. Angela sighed quietly. She said if I leave she'll stop eating. Jones closed his eyes briefly. That sounds like her. Angela smiled awkwardly. I can't live here. Jones walked toward her. I'm not asking you to. Angela raised an eyebrow. You just had my brother brought here. Jones nodded. For his safety. And mine? You are safer here than anywhere else tonight. Angela crossed her arms. I don't belong in a place like this. Jones looked directly into her eyes. Neither did I. That answer surprised her. He continued calmly. My father built this world through fear. Angela said nothing. I inherited it. And you enjoy that? Jones shook his head slightly. No? Angela studied him carefully. For the first time, she wondered if the rumors about Jones had missed something. Before either of them could speak again, the front doors opened. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. A teenage boy stepped into the room. Angela spun around. Yeah. Her younger brother rushed toward her and hugged her tightly. You scared me, he signed quickly. Angela laughed softly and hugged him back. I'm sorry. Ethan looked around the mansion in amazement. Where are we? Angela hesitated. Jones stepped forward. You're safe here. Ethan studied Jones carefully. Angela signed quickly to him. This is the man who helped us. Ethan nodded slowly. Then Jones's mother approached him gently. She signed something warm and welcoming. Ethan's face lit up. Angela watched the exchange quietly. Something inside her chest loosened slightly. For the first time in years, her brother looked safe. Jones spoke again. You and your brother can stay here. Angela turned to him. For how long? As long as necessary. Angela shook her head. There's always a price. Jones didn't deny it. Ness? Angela waited. Jones spoke plainly. My mother trusts you. Angela glanced at the older woman, who was now happily teaching Ethan a sign for chocolate cake. She'd been alone for a long time, Jones continued. She refuses tutors. Angela understood immediately. You want me to stay? Yes. Angela thought carefully. This was the kind of deal that changed lives. And traps them. She turned back to Jones. If I agree, I make the rules. Jones raised an eyebrow. You negotiate boldly. I survive that way. Jones nodded. Angela lifted one finger. First, my brother goes to the best school for deaf students in the state. Second, we are not prisoners here. You won't be. Third. She hesitated. Jones waited patiently. Angela finished. I don't help with anything illegal. Jones studied her for a long moment. Then he surprised her. Accept it. Angela blinked. You agreed too easily. Jones shrugged slightly. You misunderstand my problem. What problem? My enemies think kindness is weakness. Angela folded her arms. Maybe they're wrong. Jones looked at her carefully. That depends on what you do with it. Angela looked back toward Ethan and Jones's mother laughing together. Then she sighed. Fine. Jones waited. I'll stay. Jones nodded once. Welcome to my home. Angela corrected him quietly. I'm not here for you. Jones almost smiled. I know. But as Angela walked toward the couch where her brother and Jones's mother were signing excitedly, Jones watched her carefully. Because something about Angela was beginning to change the atmosphere of the entire house. The invisible waitress had stepped into a world of power. And she was already altering it. Without fear. Without ambition. Simply because she refused to stay silent. Jones had built his empire on strength. But watching Angela speak silently with his mother and her brother, he began to suspect something unexpected. That real power might look exactly like the quiet girl sitting in his living room. And that realization would soon reshape everything. Life inside Jones's estate settled into a strange rhythm. At first, Angela expected every day to feel tense, dangerous, unnatural. Instead, the mansion slowly began to feel peaceful. Not because the danger disappeared, but because the danger was controlled. Security guards patrolled the grounds day and night. Black vehicles came and went through the gates. Men in expensive suits held quiet meetings in offices Angela never entered. But inside the main house, the atmosphere softened, especially around Jones's mother. Every morning Angela met her in the sunlit garden room. They drank tea. They signed stories. Sometimes they simply sat together in comfortable silence. For the first time in many years, the older woman smiled often. Ethan also adjusted quickly. Jones kept his word. Within a week, Ethan was enrolled in one of the best deaf education programs in the state. A driver brought him to school each morning and picked him up each afternoon. Angela watched her brother change. He was more confident, more relaxed. Safer. For Angela, that alone made the arrangement worth it. Still, she never forgot where she was. This was not an ordinary house. It was the home of a man whose name made criminals nervous. And Jones himself remained an enigma. During the day, he was usually gone. Meetings. Venice. Things Angela did not ask about. But every evening he returned for dinner. And every evening something unusual happened. He tried to learn sign language. Angela noticed it the first time when he hesitantly signed a greeting to his mother across the table. His movements were stiff, imperfect, but sincere. His mother nearly cried with happiness. Angela corrected his hand positions gently. Your wrist should turn like this. Jones nodded. Understood. Over time, his signing improved. Slowly. Deliberately. Like everything he did. But there was another change too. Jones watched Angela often. Not in the unsettling way powerful men sometimes watched women. He studied her. Like someone trying to understand a puzzle. One evening after dinner, Angela stepped onto the large balcony overlooking the estate gardens. The sky glowed deep purple with sunset. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe. Jones stepped onto the balcony a moment later. You're thinking about leaving. Angela turned toward him. You read people too easily. Jones leaned against the railing. It's necessary in my world. Angela looked out over the darkening grounds. I never planned to live in a place like this. Neither did I. Angela glanced at him. What were you planning? Jones was quiet for a moment. Nothing peaceful. Angela studied him. You don't seem like someone who enjoys violence. Jones gave a faint, humorless smile. That's fortunate. Why? Because I'm very good at it. Angela didn't know how to answer that. Silence settled between them. Then suddenly, crack! Glass exploded behind them. Angela instinctively ducked. Jones grabbed her arm and pulled her to the ground. Another shot shattered the balcony railing. Sniper, one of the guards shouted from below. Jones moved instantly. His calm demeanor vanished, replaced by pure focus. Inside, Angela scrambled toward the doors. More gunshots echoed from the distant tree line. Guards shouted orders. Security lights flooded the property. Jones pushed Angela into the hallway and closed the doors behind them. Stay here. Yeah, Angela gasped. Jones was already moving. Security is with him. But Angela's instincts screamed otherwise. She ran toward the staircase. Jones caught her wrists. It's too dangerous. That's my brother. For a brief moment their eyes locked. Jones released her. Stay behind me. They moved quickly up the stairs. The hallway lights flickered. Downstairs, guards were shouting through radios. Angela's heart pounded violently. As they reached the second-floor landing, Jones suddenly stopped. Something felt wrong. The hallway ahead was too quiet. Then Angela saw it. A door slightly open. Ethan's room. A shadow moved inside. Jones stepped forward slowly, but Angela realized something faster. If the intruder had a gun, Jones would be the first target. Angela grabbed a heavy decorative statue from a nearby table. 20 pounds of marble. She kicked off her shoes silently. Then she ran. Jones turned just in time to see her slip past him. The intruder inside Ethan's room raised a pistol. But Angela was already swinging. The marble statue crashed against the back of his head. The man collapsed instantly. The gun clattered across the floor. Angela dropped the statue and grabbed Ethan, who had just opened the bedroom door in confusion. "It's okay," she signed quickly. Ethan stared at the unconscious man on the floor, then at his sister. Jones entered the room seconds later, gun drawn. He stopped when he saw the scene. Angela standing protectively in front of Ethan, the attacker unconscious at their feet. Jones slowly lowered his weapon. For several seconds, he simply stared at her. "You attacked him," he said quietly. Angela nodded. "He was going to shoot." Jones looked down at the man. Professional. Trained. Dangerous. Angela had stopped him with nothing but instinct. Jones turned back to her. Something had changed in his expression. It wasn't surprise anymore. It was respect. "You protected your brother," he said. Angela pulled Ethan closer. "I always will." Jones nodded slowly. "So will I." Downstairs, guards dragged the unconscious attacker away. The sniper outside had already fled. But the message was clear. Someone had ordered this. Someone who knew the estate. Someone who knew about Angela. Later that night, the mansion transformed. The dining room became a war room. Jones sat at the head of the long table. His top lieutenants surrounded him. Angela sat quietly in the corner beside Ethan. Normally, civilians were never present at meetings like this. But tonight was different. "You have a traitor," Angela said calmly. The room went silent. One of the captains laughed dismissively. "The waitress has opinions now?" Jones didn't even look at the man. "Let her speak." Angela stood. The attacker knew exactly which room Ethan was in. Silence. Only someone inside the organization would know that. The captains exchanged uneasy glances. Jones leaned back slowly. "Continue." Angela met his gaze. "Your enemy wanted you distracted." "What?" "So they could attack the thing you care about." Jones's expression hardened slightly. "And what is that?" Angela gestured toward Ethan. "And your mother." The room grew colder. Angela finished quietly. "They think we're your weakness." Jones stared at her for several long seconds. Then he spoke. "No?" His voice was calm. "They made a mistake." Angela waited. Jones stood slowly. "They just revealed their own." For the first time that night, a faint smile touched his face. And it wasn't the smile of a man cornered. It was the smile of a strategist who had just found the opening he needed. Because whoever had ordered the attack had just declared war. And Angela, the invisible waitress, had now become part of that war. Whether she wanted to be or not. The morning after the attack, the estate no longer felt peaceful. It felt like a command center. Security doubled. Guards checked every vehicle twice before opening the gates. Phones rang constantly in distant rooms where Angela was not allowed to enter. But the tension in the house wasn't panic. It was preparation. Jones had gone from calm to dangerously focused. Angela saw it in the way he moved. Quieter than usual. More deliberate. Like a man setting pieces on a chessboard. Late that afternoon, Jones summoned his closest lieutenants into the large conference room beside the library. Angela wasn't planning to attend. But when she tried to leave with Ethan, Jones stopped her. "Stay." Angela raised an eyebrow. "This is your business." Jones shook his head. "No." The lieutenants looked uncomfortable. One of them, a thick-necked man named Victor, frowned openly. "Boss with respect." Jones didn't even turn toward him. "Angela stays." Victor fell silent. Angela took his seat at the far end of the table beside Ethan. Jones began speaking. The sniper was hired through intermediaries, he said. But the man inside the house knew the layout. The room darkened with suspicion. One of the captains leaned forward. You think one of us sold you out? I know it. No one spoke. Jones tapped a tablet on the table. A photo appeared on the screen. Salvador Marino. Angela recognized the name instantly. Her stomach tightened. He's behind it, Jones said. Victor snorted. Of course he is. Angela studied the picture carefully. Not exactly. Every head turned toward her. Victor looked annoyed. You have something to add? Angela stood slowly. Yes. Jones gestured calmly. Explain. Angela pointed to the screen. Marino attacked here because he thought Jones would react emotionally. Victor frowned. Tut. Angela looked around the room. Which means someone told him what mattered most. Silence settled heavily. Angela continued. The sniper wasn't meant to kill Jones. Jones's eyes narrowed slightly. Oh, what? It was meant to hurt him. Angela gestured toward Ethan beside her. They targeted my brother. Victor crossed his arms. That doesn't prove anything. Angela looked at him directly. Actually, it does. Victor frowned. Angela's voice stayed calm. Because my brother's room assignment changed 2 days ago. The room went still. Angela continued. Only people inside this house knew that. Jones leaned back in his chair. Correct. Victor shifted slightly in his seat. So someone told Marino. Angela nodded. Yes. Jones tapped the table once. And tonight we find out who. Angela frowned slightly. Jones stood. There's a charity gala tonight. Angela blinked. A gala? Victor smirked. Marino's hosting it. Angela understood immediately. You're going. Yes. And you expect the traitor to be there. Jones nodded. Because betrayal is expensive. Angela folded her arms. And where do I come in? Jones looked directly at her. You're coming with me. Victor nearly laughed. Boss, you're bringing the waitress to a Mafia gala? Jones didn't even look at him. She isn't just a waitress. Angela raised an eyebrow. What exactly am I? Jones answered calmly. An observer. Angela crossed her arms. That's vague. Jones stepped closer. You said yesterday that growing up around your brother made you notice things. Angela nodded slowly. When you rely on sign language, you watch people's mouths. Jones continued. You read your lips. Angela realized what he meant. You want me to watch conversations. Yes. Victor scoffed. That's ridiculous. Jones turned his head slightly. Victor stopped talking immediately. Angela thought about it carefully. You want me to find the traitor? Jones nodded. Angela took a deep breath. This could get dangerous. Jones's voice softened slightly. I won't let anything happen to you. Angela raised an eyebrow again. You don't get to promise that. Jones didn't argue. Instead, he said something honest. I will try. Angela studied him for several seconds. Then she sighed. Fine. Victor shook his head in disbelief. This is insane. Jones simply said one word. Prepare. That evening, the city's skyline glittered like a field of diamonds. The gala took place at the top of a luxury hotel overlooking Manhattan. Inside, the ballroom was filled with politicians, investors, socialites, and criminals pretending to be businessmen. Angela stepped out of the car and immediately felt every eye in the room. She wore a deep crimson dress chosen by Jones's staff. Her hair fell loose over her shoulders. For the first time in her life, she didn't look like an invisible worker. She looked powerful. Jones offered his arm. Angela took it reluctantly. You look uncomfortable, he said quietly. I feel like prey. Jones's lips curved slightly. Anyone who tries will regret it. Inside the ballroom, conversations slowed as Jones entered. People noticed. People always noticed him. But tonight they noticed Angela too. Whispers followed them across the room. Who is she? Angela ignored them. Her eyes were already scanning the crowd. Watching, listening, reading lips. And then she saw him. Victor. Standing near the balcony. Talking to a man Angela recognized immediately. Marino's right-hand enforcer. Angela leaned closer to Jones without moving her lips. 2 o'clock, balcony. Jones kept walking calmly. I see them. Angela focused on Victor's mouth. The music was loud. The room was chaotic. But Angela's world often existed in silence. She watched carefully. Victor's lips moved. Tonight. Angela tightened her grip on Jones's arm. He just said tonight. Jones's expression remained neutral. What else? Angela watched again. Elevator. Her eyes widened slightly. They're planning something. Jones nodded subtly. I suspected. Angela whispered. They think you're leaving through the private elevator. Yes. Angela's pulse quickened. That means it's trapped. Angela exhaled slowly. Then why are we here? Jones looked toward Victor. To end it. Angela blinked. Who? Jones's eyes were calm. Yes. He turned toward her. I need you to do something brave. Angela frowned. That sentence never ends well. Jones leaned closer. Walk up to Marino. Angela stared at him. You joking? I'm not. Why would I do that? Because he wants you dead. Angela glared at him. That's not reassuring. Jones lowered his voice. You distract him. For how long? 30 seconds. Angela hesitated. What are you doing in those 30 seconds? Jones looked toward Victor again. Removing the traitor. Angela considered the plan. It was dangerous. Risky. Possibly insane. But if she refused, the trap might still kill Jones. Angela sighed. Fine. Jones placed a small object in her hand. A compact switchblade. If something goes wrong, he said quietly, defend yourself. Angela tucked it into her clutch. Then she took a breath and walked toward Salvador Marino. The room seemed to quiet as she approached. Marino looked up slowly. Recognition spread across his face. Well, he said with a crooked smile. The waitress. Angela met his gaze calmly. You enjoy sending killers after children? Marino chuckled. You think Jones can protect you forever? Angela leaned slightly closer. You should be more worried about protecting yourself. Marino's smile faded slightly. What do you mean? Angela answered quietly. You trusted the wrong man. Behind her, Victor suddenly grabbed Jones's arm, only to find Dante already holding a gun against his back. The ballroom gasped. Victor froze. Jones stepped forward calmly. Looking for this? He asked. Victor's face turned pale. Jones addressed the entire room. This man sold information about my family. Victor tried to protest. You can't prove it. Angela spoke quietly. You discussed the elevator trap with Marino's man at the balcony. Victor's mouth fell open. Jones looked at him coldly. She reads lips. Victor realized it too late. He had already confessed. Security dragged him away. Marino's expression darkened. You think this ends here? Jones stepped closer. No. His voice was calm. It ends now. Because in that moment, every powerful person in the room understood something. The quiet waitress beside Jones had just exposed a traitor inside one of the most feared criminal empires in the city. Without weapons, without threats, just by seeing what no one else noticed. And the power dynamic in the room shifted forever. The ballroom never fully recovered from the moment Victor was exposed. Conversations died mid-sentence. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. Powerful men who had arrived expecting a night of polite networking were now witnessing something far more dangerous. A public shift in power. Victor struggled as Jones's security forced him toward the exit. You can't do this, Victor shouted. You're a mate. Jones's voice was calm. I needed loyalty. Victor's face twisted with anger. You think she's loyal? He spat, pointing at Angela. She's just a waitress. Angela didn't react. But Jones did. He stepped forward slowly. That, he said quietly, is exactly why you lost. The guards dragged Victor out of the ballroom. No one tried to stop them. Not even Marino. The older crime boss simply watched with narrowed eyes. Then he turned toward Angela. You're impressive, Marino said slowly. Angela met his gaze without fear. You hurt my family. Marino shrugged. That's business. Angela shook her head. No. Her voice stayed steady. That's cowardice. Several people in the room exchanged uneasy glances. Marino's smile faded slightly. You're brave tonight, he said, but Jones can't protect you forever. Angela didn't answer. Instead, she said something unexpected. You're finished. Marino laughed. Do you know how long I've controlled this city? Angela nodded slightly. Long enough to become predictable. Jones stepped beside her. Your accounts are frozen, he said calmly. Marino's laughter stopped. What? Jones nodded toward Dante. Dante stepped forward holding a tablet. Your offshore holdings were transferred this afternoon. Marino stared at him. That's impossible. Dante shrugged. You shouldn't trust bankers who prefer a living. A ripple of whispers moved across the ballroom. Angela watched Marino carefully. For the first time since she had met him. The man looked uncertain. Jones continued. The docks you used to control? Dante swiped the tablet again. Transferred. The warehouses? Towed. The trucking routes? The. Marino's face slowly turned pale. You stole my empire. Jones shook his head slightly. No. He gestured toward Angela. You lost it. Marino looked at her with pure hatred. All of this, he hissed, because of a waitress? Angela's voice remained calm. No. She took a step closer. Because you underestimated one. Silence filled the room. Marino realized something terrible. He had spent years preparing to defeat Jones. But he had ignored the quiet woman standing beside him. And that mistake had destroyed everything. Security approached Marino slowly. The once powerful crime boss looked around the ballroom. But no one stepped forward to help him. Not the politicians. Not the businessmen. Not even the criminals. Power had already shifted. Marino straightened his jacket bitterly. This isn't over. Jones's voice was calm. For you. He nodded toward the approaching security officers. Yes? Marino was escorted out of the ballroom. And just like that, the war ended. Later that night, Angela stood on the balcony of Jones's estate. The city lights glowed far in the distance. The air was quiet again. Hazel. Footsteps approached behind her. Jones. You changed everything tonight, he said. Angela looked at the city. I just told the truth. Jones leaned against the railing beside her. Truth is dangerous. Angela smiled faintly. So is silence. They stood there quietly for a moment. Then Jones spoke again. Marino's organization collapsed this morning. Angela turned slightly. A fuss? Without money and allies, power disappears quickly. Angela nodded. I guess fear only works until someone stops being afraid. Jones studied her carefully. You weren't afraid. Angela shook her head. I was terrified. Jones almost smiled. That's the same thing. Angela looked at him. So what happens now? Jones was quiet for several seconds. Then he answered honestly. That depends on you. Angela frowned slightly. Amit? Jones nodded. I can offer you anything. Angela waited. Money. She shook her head. Position. Another shake. Finally, he said the last possibility. A life with me. Angela didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched between them. Jones didn't step closer. He didn't pressure her. He simply waited. Angela turned to face him fully. When I came here, she said softly, I thought I was stepping into a cage. Jones listened quietly. But something strange happened. Oh, you listen. Jones tilted his head slightly. The what? Angela smiled faintly. To someone no one else bothered hearing. Jones's voice softened. You changed my house. Angela looked back toward the mansion windows. Inside, she could see Jones's mother and Ethan laughing together while signing. That's all I ever wanted, Angela said. For people to be heard. Jones studied her. You could leave tomorrow. Angela looked back at him. You let me? Yes. Angela considered the answer. That freedom mattered more than anything he could have offered. Because power that allowed choice was real power. Angela took a slow breath. Then she reached for his hand. I'm not leaving. Jones didn't react immediately. He simply looked down at their hands. You're sure? Angela nodded. But on one condition. Jones almost laughed. You always have one. Angela met his gaze. This place changes. Jones waited. No innocent people get hurt again. Jones nodded slowly. That was already the plan. Angela smiled. But because the shy waitress who once polished glasses in silence was no longer invisible, she had walked into a world of power and violence. And instead of becoming part of it, she had changed it. Not with threats, not with money, but with something far stronger. Period. The courage to speak when silence would have been easier. And sometimes, that kind of courage can reshape even the darkest empires. Angela looked out over the quiet city one last time. Then she squeezed Jones's hand. Not as a servant, not as someone powerless, but as someone who had chosen her own future. And in the end, that was the greatest power of all. Reflection. People often believe power belongs to the loudest voices, the richest men, or the most feared leaders. But this story proves something different. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one who refuses to stay silent when something is wrong. And sometimes, the quietest voice can change everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because the next story might change the way you see the world.